for example, I need to find a friend a job, and I have a big network of contacts. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Learn English with Teachify.
Hello.
Sorry, that really made me laugh. Will, you.
Yeah, it's a little bit too high pitched, Will.
Sorry.
It's a great way to start the podcast, though. And Will, how are you doing?
I'm great, Lewis. I've never been better. That's not true, actually. It's still really hot in Madrid, and I'm really bored of it. I just want winter, you know? I want that cold weather, that breeze, that feeling of, wrapping up warm. Oh, that's what I want. Mind you, Mickey, I believe you're probably sweating over there.
Yeah, it's pretty warm where I am in Bali at the moment. I'm in a place called Sanur, which is on the the east side of Bali, because this is where I'm going diving at the weekend. But just to go back, it's not about that. I still love the way you say Madrid. How do you say it, Lewis?
Madrid.
How do you say it, Will?
Madrid.
I always feel like you go Madrid, like it's
Madrid.
And you've been there for so long, and I find it so strange.
Oh, maybe I say Madrid. Madrid.
Maybe.
Yeah, I don't say it in Spanish. Right? Yeah, maybe I say Madrid. Madrid.
Madrid. Yeah.
No, I don't
say
put the accent on the
Madrid.
beginning.
Yeah, you do. Keep an eye out for it, guys. Keep an eye out and listen for it. You'll notice it at some point.
That's crazy, Mickey.
Okay, so today we're going to be focused. We're going to stick to a topic. We're not going to go off on a tangent, because last week I think we had a great chat about how we learned Spanish, and we gave some little language learning tips, but we went on and on and on. And today we're going to speak about a lovely topic, which is kind of related to business, but also life in general. And it is all about decision making, about making decisions. So that being said, my first question is to Mickey. And are you a decisive person?
I think it depends on what it is, but in general,
not making a decision right now. Mickey is indecisive.
Indecisive. No, I think I'm quite decisive, and I think it's come more with work. You have to be decisive when running a business, and I think we've all had to make a lot of decisions over the years that we've been working together. And I think it's better sometimes to just make a decision and move forward than to not make a decision and stagnate and waste time. So I feel like I'm quite decisive. But if you ask me what I want for dinner or for lunch, and I'm looking at a menu, that can be a bit tricky. That can take some time, because I always want to have the best. So that I can be a bit slow at making a decision.
Are you going to continue talking, or is
I was waiting for him to make a decision,
I was really confused there. I saw faces and I thought, hold on, who's talking now?
I stopped and I saw Lewis and I thought, oh, maybe his microphone's gone off. But no, we were just at the right moment. Yeah.
No. Like what I was trying to do there, and what I was trying to express, which sometimes, when we have Zoom calls, video calls, it can be tricky to communicate effectively. I was opening it up and waiting, oh, Mickey's going to ask a question now. And then he was staring at me. He was like, no, Mickey, no, your turn.
Sorry.
Mickey,
very rude of me.
Make a
not
decision.
To do that.
Now it's your turn. Now you can ask the question.
Okay. I'm going to ask you one then, Lewis, because I rudely didn't ask you a question back, and I don't know why.
It's okay.
Awkward. Do you normally weigh up the pros and cons before making a decision?
I weigh up?
How else can we say pros and cons in English?
Advantages and disadvantages?
Ooh. Is there another one? I think there is. Do we know it, Will?
Positives and negatives?
Oh, I've got another one. Does anybody know another one?
After you.
Upsides and downsides.
Oh, yeah.
Amazing.
There's actually another one as well, but it's not quite the same because I can't think of the exact similar word for positives. Because we know drawbacks. Drawbacks are negatives, disadvantages, downsides, but we don't say upbacks. So I think that
What is the
only
word
exists.
for- Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to Google that while we're talking. Keep going anyway,
Google it.
Lewis.
But anyway, you asked me the question, which was, do you normally weigh up the pros and cons before making a decision? Now, phrasal verb, great phrasal verb. To weigh something up is kind of like to evaluate, to analyze, and to think about before making a decision. Attention, I stressed make a decision and not take a decision. This, to be honest, some people do say take a decision, but it's not the correct option. So always try to say make a decision. Now,
Yeah, it's actually quite frustrating when students make that mistake after you've told them 100 times.
exactly. Get them told. Get them told. But yeah, I'd say I do usually weigh up the pros and cons before making a decision. But I don't normally write them down. I don't normally jot down a list of pros and cons. I'm evaluating them in my head and thinking like, okay, if I make this decision, these are the advantages, these are possible positives that are going to come from this decision. But I have to also think about what would happen in a negative scenario. And based on my findings and my evaluations, I think, okay, the positives outweigh the negatives. So there are more positives than negatives. And then I try to make the decision. But I've got to be honest, I'm pretty indecisive with most things. And I just think, both options could be good. What's the worst that could happen?
Yeah, you don't really mind either or sometimes. Like you're just quite happy to just do whatever everybody's doing and everybody's happy. Like instead of being the odd one out who can't decide, which is quite true. I don't know what you're like, Will. Are you like that? Will
No,
is
I'm
not.
impulsive. I make a decision. I make a decision and I stick with it. And this goes full circle to when we spoke about food. I look at a menu, I say, I want that. And then when someone says, oh, maybe this, I say, shh, I've chosen, I've made my decision. And if it's not very good, I take responsibility and I will continue to not share and not eat. No, I make decisions. I don't waste
But
them.
is this the same in every aspect of your life? Mickey mentioned that he's quite decisive nowadays when it comes to running the company. At work, he's quite good at making decisions, but when it comes to going out
Hang on.
for a
You
meal,
say quite good. You mean amazing, Lewis? Not quite
quite
good.
good, amazing, fantastic, incredible, outstanding. I could go on if you want. But Mickey's quite indecisive when it comes to picking something to eat, but quite decisive when it comes to making a business decision. What about you, Will?
I would say that I am decisive, but then I speak to you guys, and maybe it's not the correct decision, and I have to change my mind. So I would say, for example, I would make a decision, but maybe I don't have the authority to make such a decision. And then I try and I say, hey guys, what about this? And you say, no, maybe not the best option.
Terrible idea.
Yeah, and I say, okay, let's go. Let's
Just to
not do it.
clarify for anyone listening or watching, basically Will is referring to buying some kind of tool that he thinks is going to benefit us, and it usually costs a lot of money. And he runs the decision by, which is an interesting phrasal verb, to run the decision by Lewis and myself. And 9 times out of 10, we both say that's a terrible idea. Don't do it. So that's how we operate, guys.
True, actually. And
I
the
think.
one tool that is actually really useful, I pay for myself, which is ChatGPT.
Oh, whoa, wait. So we were speaking about ChatGPT before we started recording. Well, I didn't know you paid for it because I thought everybody just used the free version. Why did you make the decision to start paying for ChatGPT?
Because, Lewis,
You want to work less.
basically, to have access to ChatGPT 4 and the plugins, which is very useful. But ChatGPT is a more advanced version. It also gives you ChatGPT 3.5 with more text, so you can create very, very, very long texts, and you can input more data. There's a lot of I don't know what you're looking at there, Mickey.
Yeah, I don't know. There's some people wandering around, and I have
Oh,
no
right.
headphones. I don't want to be that guy, and it turns out I am that
I
guy.
understand. No, but basically to make my life easier. For example, if I want something, if I need to make a decision, I'll ask ChatGPT.
A or B, pick for me.
Yeah, and we need to create a lot of things, which takes a lot of time, and I'd rather have the best engine or the best machine working for me than the limited free version. That's my
Right.
reason, all right? Okay.
Nice.
Do I ask
Good
a
stuff.
question now? I'm really lost.
So you get
Go
asked one. I
ahead,
think
Will.
Lewis is going to send one over.
You can ask any question you see fit related to a topic of making a decision making.
All right, I like this one. Mikhail, do you ever regret choices you make?
No, never.
Whoa, no hesitation. Immediately responding. Never. You never regret anything.
No, 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 no. I
Even I
never do
regret
really.
some decisions you make.
Yeah, but that's you. That's you. Don't put your traumas onto me. I'm happy with my decisions. Yeah, no, I've never really been like that, to be honest with you. Yeah, I think it comes more from my mum. She never regrets anything she does, and I think she's just always told me to be the same. So it's just kind of how I am. But yeah, no. What about you guys?
Oh, well, I would say yes, but I usually regret things I don't do than the things I do. Because I think if I've been brave enough, courageous enough to make a decision, I have done it because at some point I thought that that was the right thing to do. Then I think, well, what's done is done. We cannot cry over spilt milk. I
Mm.
cannot be sad or angry about things that have already happened. Nice expression. Don't cry over spilt milk. To spill is the verb that if you have, for example, a drink and you touch it, you hit it by accident, then it might spill. It might fall over your table, for example. But don't cry over spilt milk. In other words, what's done is done. You cannot change anything about it. But I do regret things that I don't do. And I think like, oh, I should have done that. I should have started this. I should have, I don't know, invested in cryptocurrencies 15 years ago rather than 2 years ago.
Don't get me
Because I
started,
think
because
that
I
was
love
an
it.
opportunity and I didn't know and I didn't make the most of it. So now I try to make sure that I am as consistent as possible. And when I have an idea, I try to pursue that idea and actually do the hard work that is kind of related to that idea. Because I don't want to have regrets in the future of thinking like, I should have done this because, shoulda, woulda, coulda. Will, how about you? Do you ever have any regrets? Do you regret doing something or not doing something?
Oh, all the time. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, the majority of decisions, yeah, I make, I regret them. No, I actually,
Should
it's
have
one of
shared that food.
never, no, the food is it's one of those things that I always say, for example, I regret things. For example, my, a few tattoos, maybe,
Oh,
Okay.
oh yeah, no, yeah, no. Yeah, I'm with you on that one, Will. I also
it,
that's one thing I do regret is a few tattoos.
and it's one of those things which I regret the tattoo. For example, if I were 18 again, I wouldn't I wouldn't do it. But at the same time, I don't mind having them because that's the decision I made at the time. So it kind of reminds me of that period of my life. So
How
I don't
stupid you
really.
were.
Hmm?
How stupid you were. No.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm still that stupid. I think. But yeah, I would say that I maybe have some regrets in terms of things I maybe would do differently, but I don't care. I'm quite happy as I am. So yeah, I live in the present, you know?
Oh,
Oh,
it's a nice little philosophy to have. By
Yeah.
the way, a nice little phrase that came to mind just then. Mickey said something, then Will was like, hmm? Here you could say, excuse me, a nice polite way to ask someone to repeat themselves. But it's quite common to say, come again,
mm.
come again, which in other words means like, excuse me, what did you say? And another one, which is very informal and slang, which is probably what I would use with my friends, would be, you what?
Oh, yeah, that's it.
You what?
I don't know if I would use that one though. It's a bit too informal, no?
Depends on who you're with. If you're with your friends, then absolutely. So,
Yeah.
excuse me would be the formal version. Come again is a nice alternative, which is relatively formal too. And then the final one, you what, is a very informal and slang way to get someone to repeat what they said.
But if you're in a meeting, maybe just stick with, sorry, I didn't quite get that. Or I'm sorry, I didn't, sorry, could you repeat that?
Yeah.
Maybe don't say, come again.
You what?
You what?
All right, now let's move on from these conversation questions related to decision making to actually coming up with some pros and cons ourselves. So I'm going to give you a decision or let's say, I don't know, an action. And then I want you to come up with, to create, to think of some pros and cons. The first one is moving abroad. So, Will, Mickey, what are the pros and cons, in your opinion, of moving abroad?
I would say for me, one of the first ones would be the learning curve of moving abroad, because you obviously have to speak another language most of the time. And even though we're all English native speakers, but we've all three of us have obviously immersed ourselves in the language of the country that we've moved to, which isn't always the case, but it should be the case. And I like the learning curve of learning a language, and I like that every day you go to, I don't know, for example, you go to get your hair cut, and it's a challenge to have to speak to them in another language and explain how you want your haircut, or if you go to the supermarket. So I like every day is a bit of a challenge, whereas when you're living in your own country, everything's quite easy because you can communicate with no problem. So yeah, I would say that's one of the pros of moving abroad, is the learning curve of languages.
Mhm.
This is something that people don't really think about, is the getting your hair cut. Because it's such a personal thing. I remember when I came to Spain, I didn't get my hair cut for like 4 months because I didn't know how to say it. And then when I did go, I just had a picture on my phone. But
Yeah,
yeah,
but
this
also like cheating on your hairdresser from back home is like cheating on your wife. It's like you'd never do it. It's like your hairdressers, you can never
yeah, yeah,
change.
yeah.
Like once you found one, that's good. You have to stay there forever.
You have to, and when you go to another one and then come
Like,
back and
I'm
you have to
sorry.
go, I'm sorry.
I feel so guilty. You know, I'm so,
Yeah.
last I had to do it once, and I'm like, I'm really sorry. I had to go somewhere else.
I always say, I was on a business trip and I had to,
I had no other option.
I
Honestly, I
was,
didn't want to.
I'm so sorry. No, but this is important. And I also, what you're saying there, like, for example, the small things you do in another language, for me, that was the motivation to keep learning a language. Because I remember the first time ordering a coffee when in Spain from the cafeteria in, or the, yeah, in the train station. I remember learning the phrase "I would like a coffee," and then there was always a question like "I would like a coffee." Then it was like to take away or to drink in.
It's
You're
like,
like,
malfunction.
yeah. And but then you learn, okay, to take away. So can I have a coffee to take away? And they're like, do you want warm milk or cold milk? And I'm like, what? Okay, warm milk. And then they're like, sugar, sweetener. I'm like, I just want a coffee. But once you learn everything, it's like a little win, you know? And you think, oh,
Yeah.
wow, I'm ordering a coffee, my life's in Spanish. And that kind of motivates you to just keep learning a bit more. And is
So it's
what I
kind of
always say
like,
to the student,
so,
sorry,
sorry,
is
what
what
were
I
you
always say to the students is like the little wins are kind of what make you feel good. So, even though it's a slow process learning a language, that should be what motivates you.
Yeah, I was just going to say, just to add on to that, it's a bit like with you with your jujitsu, which, by the way, Will has apparently completed jujitsu after 2 weeks.
Finished.
But it's about being comfortable in uncomfortable situations, and it's the same with languages. So it's quite a nice thing to remember.
I think so.
So you've both given examples of pros, of advantages, of upsides, of positives. Are there any downsides or drawbacks that immediately come to mind?
Yeah, I've got one.
Go on.
I think this is just me personally. Like, I think it just depends where it is as well. Like, because once you get used to the way that things operate in your own country, sometimes going to another country that doesn't operate quite the same, it can be a bit frustrating. So that could be one of the downsides, is higher levels of frustration, which happened to me quite a few times in Spain, just with the queuing system, which I still don't understand, which is why I'm no longer there. No, I'm joking. That's not the reason. But like, people don't know how to queue, and everybody's like, who's the last one in the queue? Obviously it's the person who's at the end of the queue, but there is no queue because they don't queue, so nobody knows. Like, yeah, these little things. So I don't know how you would say that in English. What would that be? One of the downsides is the way countries, the cultural differences,
I guess, yeah,
sometimes.
some subtle cultural differences that maybe for you are like, second nature. It's common knowledge that if you go to a supermarket, you want to pay for something, you line up in the queue, you go to the end, you wait till it's your turn. And sometimes in certain areas, they don't abide by the same cultural cues and cultural ways of being.
Yeah, like, have you ever been it when you're there and like someone's standing next to you, but they should be behind you? And it's like, it's a bit confusing. Like, this is really frustrating.
Do I have to tell you?
I had this at an airport, actually, Ryanair flight. And every time, like, I was queuing and going, this guy was standing next to me. And every time I moved one forward, he would like next to me. So I just said to him, I had my music on, I took my headphones out, and I said, look, I said, if you want to go in front, no problem. I said, if you want to go behind, no problem. I was like, but next to me is a problem. So he just like slipped in behind, and then he just stayed the whole way. Like, but it made me feel like calm because it was making me anxious.
And you asserted your authority. Like,
I made a decision.
Behind me. You did. You were very decisive in that moment. I would have been much more indecisive, like.
I offered him to go in front as well. Like, for me, it didn't matter, but just either front or behind. Like,
I had a situation in the supermarket where there were loads of people behind me, and then there was a guy who just came and stood next to me, and I think I was next or whatever, and he had something, and he just stood next to me when there was a massive queue, and I said, the queue's back there, and he was like, "Oh no, I know where I am. I'm behind that person." And I remember it got a little awkward, and I remember saying to him, "Yeah, well, you should go and stand behind the person then, okay? Like, do you not understand how a queue works?" And it got a little uncomfortable, but hey, in the
I'm just
end,
going to jot this down. Real anger problems.
I wasn't angry, all right? I was just trying to teach. That was all I wanted.
You were just frustrated. But whilst you've both told a little queue anecdote, I've got one too. And what I hate more than anything is when people leave their like shopping basket or their trolley in the queue, and then they go and buy other stuff. And you are like, you don't realize that that's there, or maybe they put it to one side, and you think that you're going to be next and you're ready to pay for your stuff, etc., etc. And then they come back after like 10 minutes, and it's like, oh yeah, I was here, there's my basket. It's like, I haven't seen you. I've been in the queue for like 10 minutes. What?
Let it out. Let it out.
I think we can have a whole topic about this, like
I think maybe we'll change the name of this podcast from decision making to queue problems. But all right, let's do one more pro and con debate discussion. And Will, do you want to choose a topic, and then myself and Mickey can go over some quick pros and cons?
Yeah, okay. What are the pros and cons of working remotely? Because a lot of students kind of have mixed opinions about this, and I have my opinions, but I'm curious what you guys think, because
I'm going to let you go on this one first, Lewis.
Yeah,
because
I will.
I think out of all three of us, like Lewis and myself are the ones who actually make the most of, very nice phrasal verb there, make the most of working remotely. And a lot of the teachers tend to stay very local to the cities where they are, but we move around quite a bit.
Yeah, I'm very clear on this. I will kick off. I'll get the ball rolling by saying that I think working remotely is the best thing to happen to work and a working culture. I don't know whether ever, but at least in my lifetime, because it gives you so much freedom. And for example, right now I'm in Brussels, but over the last year, I've been working from my mum and dad's house. And then if I want to go to the beach or I want to go on holiday, but I don't want to take time off work, then I can take my laptop and I can work without any problem. So I think it's like 95% pros of working remotely, mainly just because of the freedom, but also little things like waking up slightly later, and then you don't have to spend money on public transport. You don't have to drive for hours to go to your office. And then once you finish, you have finished and you can go to the gym, go for a walk. You don't have to walk back home, etc., etc. So it's much more convenient, I think, to work remotely. The only thing that I do mention to some friends from time to time is like, oh, it'd be nice to meet up with my colleagues once a week, maybe, or once every couple of weeks, because it is true that I do miss sometimes that social interaction, but not to the point where I would want to go to the office even twice a week, just maybe Fridays. Let's meet up, let's work in the morning, and then let's go out for lunch together. That would be, for me, the perfect balance. So remote working 95% of the time, but then if you have the option of meeting up with some colleagues on a Friday, then that is the icing on top of the cake, the cherry on top.
Beer o'clock, Friday beer o'clock, is that what you're saying?
Exactly. This is the one thing I miss about working in person in an office. But that's enough about me. Mickey, do we see eye to eye? Are we on the same page?
We are, yeah, I think we are quite on the same page. The only thing I would add to that is actually you, Lewis, in particular, I think you're quite a strict person. Like you have a structure and a routine. So for you, working remotely fits very well. But I think other people, like a lot of people, they don't have much of a structure and they're not strict with themselves. So it does, I feel like I've noticed that some people, they can have a tendency to get a little bit lazy and they drop the ball a little bit. They don't pay attention to detail with the work that they should be doing. And this is, I think, more so because they're just unable to be a bit strict with themselves and stick to a routine. And, you know, we've all done it with like, you know, exercising, making sure we're getting daily walks in as well, especially sitting down all day on the computer, and trying to make the most of that time that you do have. So I think it depends on the person. So I'm going to say that's kind of like a semi-pro, semi-con. Is it depends on the person, in my opinion.
Perfect. So yeah, we preach remote work. Awesome. Now, to finish off this week's podcast, let's go over some expressions. As last week, every week, we finish off explaining a phrasal verb or an expression each. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Need to drink. So I'll send it over to Will. Do you want to explain an expression of your choice?
I would like to, Lewis, actually. Thank you
But
for that.
no.
I would like to, and yeah, I will, actually. You know what? I will. Sure. The first time I said I will in Spanish, in Spain, my student just said, he said, you will? I Jorge. Made me laugh.
It's like that scene in Rush Hour. Have you seen that? That scene in Rush Hour? If you don't know it, guys, I'll have to try and find a link and I don't know, share it on Instagram because it's pretty funny.
It is like that. So my expression is out of the blue, which is a nice expression because I think it's something common. I think last week I said I never learn expressions. So I always try to prioritize and say to students, it's good to understand, but you don't need to use it. But this one's quite good to use as well. Out of the blue, it means out of nowhere, suddenly, you didn't expect it. One of those things that just happens. So, for example, I was, living my life happy as a clam.
Uh-huh.
And then
Happy as
out of the
Larry.
blue, my girlfriend just told me everything's gone downhill.
Are you all right? Do you need a shoulder to cry on?
I mean, I need two technically, but yeah. No,
You
nah,
need me
I'm
and Lewis
joking.
either side.
Yeah. That would be nice. No, so out of the blue, when something suddenly happens, just to confirm, everything's all right in my relationship.
Good to know. Good to know.
Oh, I don't know about that. Look at his face.
Oh dear. So that is our first expression, out of the blue, unexpectedly, or out of nowhere. Next one, I'll continue with to pull some strings. So to pull some strings is to kind of manage and manipulate things from far. That's one possible explanation. And another one is to use some contact. So maybe, for example, I need to find a friend a job, and I have a big network of contacts. I'll say, don't worry, John, I'll see if I can pull some strings. I'll see if I can use some of my contacts to get you what you want. So usually, let's say, powerful people or people in a managerial position try to pull some strings to use their contacts to get what they want, essentially.
Nice.
Nikki,
Very
you
nice. I like
raised
that
your
one.
hand. Did you have something to add?
Yeah, no, nothing to add. Just I like this one and I actually use this one quite a lot, which is something I realized when starting this business was actually it's quite good to be able to pull some strings because I've had quite a few pulled for me in our favor over the years. So it's always nice to return that to certain people. I've got one expression and then we can finish up. And this one is up in the air. And this means it's out of your control, really. So maybe you're waiting for some decisions to happen, or perhaps you're waiting for a client to make a final decision. But it's up in the air. It's out of your control. You're waiting on somebody else to make the decision before you can move forward with it. So that one is up in the air. Very nice.
Awesome, very efficient. And I think that's it for today. We're going to make the decision of calling it a day. So I hope you enjoyed listening to this podcast on Spotify or watching this podcast on YouTube. 1 minute. Don't know if this happens to you guys, but my earphones, they always feel like they're about to fall out of my ears. So that's why I grabbed it. But anyway, let's call it a day. I hope you enjoyed watching this podcast on YouTube, listening to it on Spotify, and maybe checking out some of the short videos that we've been posting of these little expressions. So thank you so much, everybody. And do not forget to teachify your life.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye. Ciao, ciao. See ya.